The Galactic Union had long believed itself to be the pinnacle of civilization. Spanning thousands of star systems, its member species prided themselves on their advanced technology, peaceful governance, and absolute control over interstellar affairs. War, to them, was a relic of the past, something only primitive beings indulged in. But then they detected it. A single warship, emerging from the darkness of uncharted space, heading straight for Union territory. It wasn't like anything they had seen before, jagged, black as the void, radiating signals that made their systems shriek with warnings. The ship carried a name in bold, stark letters across its hull: Valkyrie. The first to detect it were the scanners aboard a Zelnari outpost, a deep space monitoring station on the outer fringes of the Union. The Zelnari were a species of scholars and scientists, renowned for their ability to predict and prevent potential threats before they ever became real. Their technology could detect a comet 50 light-years away, analyze its trajectory, and determine if it posed any risk. But this ship, this human warship, sent their entire system into panic mode. Alarms blared. AI subroutines designed to assess threats stalled in confusion. Defensive protocols engaged automatically, shutting down every non-essential function as if the station were already under attack. Administrator Relva, a veteran of 1,000 research campaigns, watched in stunned silence as the data came in. The ship was massive, twice the size of a Union dreadnought, yet moving with the efficiency of a strike craft. More than that, its hull was lined with unknown alloys that absorbed or deflected most scans, making it difficult to determine its armament. But the readings that did come through were terrifying. Energy levels beyond standard Union warship classifications. Kinetic projectiles so massive they could punch through a planetary shield. An AI on board that was processing data faster than Union networks could track. This can't be right, Relva whispered, gripping the edge of the console. This is some kind of mistake. But it wasn't. The moment Union High Command received the outpost's distress signal, panic spread like wildfire. Across hundreds of worlds, defense fleets scrambled, orders were issued, and diplomatic channels lit up in desperation. For centuries, humanity had been a whispered legend. Barbarians who had been cast out of the galactic community ages ago. The Union had declared them extinct, wiped out by their own violent tendencies. And yet, here they were. And they were coming. The Valkyrie moved through the void with terrifying precision. Unlike the sleek, elegant vessels of the Galactic Union, which relied on automated navigation and delicate gravitational drives, this ship moved with raw, mechanical brutality. Every burst of its thrusters sent ripples through space, a monstrous machine that carried the weight of a species long thought extinct. Inside the Zelnari outpost, chaos reigned. Every attempt to communicate with the warship was met with silence. Every scan returned fragmented, scrambled, or incomplete. It was as if the ship wanted them to know it was there, but nothing more. "Send out a first contact protocol," Administrator Relva barked. "We need to know if they come in peace." The comms officer, a young Zelnari named Tavas, hesitated. "Sir, the ship isn't responding to hails. It's still coming. Fast." Relva turned to the holographic display, where a real-time projection of the Valkyrie loomed like a demon in the dark. It was close. Too close. In minutes, it would be within range of their defense grid. And then, the warship did something that sent a wave of primal fear through every Zelnari watching. It slowed down. It wasn't charging in recklessly, as an attacking fleet might. It wasn't drifting helplessly, as a derelict would. No, this was something worse. It was calculating, watching, testing them. Relva's breath caught. "Prepare the defense cannons," he said, voice unsteady. The officers around him turned in horror. Sir? You heard me, he said. This human warship wasn't supposed to exist, and yet it's here. If it doesn't respond, we must assume hostility. Tavas swallowed hard and nodded. Activating the grid now. Across the outpost, massive railguns and plasma turrets whirred to life, their barrels shifting toward the incoming ship. For a moment, the station's defenses locked onto their target, and a tense silence filled the control room. Then, before a single shot could be fired, the Valkyrie responded. A transmission, heavily encrypted and old, so old that the Union's decryption software had trouble parsing it. When the system finally managed to reconstruct the message, it appeared on the main screen. The words written in an archaic, yet terrifyingly clear dialect. Stand down, or be annihilated. The silence that followed was deafening. Tavas's hands trembled over his console. Sir, that's a threat. No, Relva murmured, his throat dry. That's a promise. And then, as if to drive the point home, the Valkyrie powered up its weapons. The station's AI sent an immediate analysis of the warship's armaments. The numbers were staggering. Every single gun on the Valkyrie, from its main cannon to its secondary turrets, had enough firepower to shred a Union battleship to atoms. This is impossible, one of the officers whispered. The warship's engines flared, its massive hull shifting ever so slightly, like a predator baring its fangs. Sir, Tavas said in a shaking voice, if we attack, we die. Relva knew it, too. But what haunted him wasn't just the realization that they were outmatched. It was the thought that this wasn't the only human warship out there. This was just the beginning. The tension inside the Zelnari outpost was suffocating. No one dared to breathe as the Valkyrie hovered just beyond the range of their defense grid, its weapons hot, its presence like a blade at their throats. Relva's mind raced. This wasn't how first contact was supposed to go. There were protocols, carefully crafted diplomatic channels. The Galactic Union had spent centuries ensuring that misunderstandings never led to war. But humans didn't seem to care about protocols. Run the message through every translation filter we have, he ordered. We need to make sure we're not misinterpreting it. Tavas frantically worked at his console. Seconds later, the screen confirmed the worst. Message verified. Stand down, or be annihilated. The words felt like an execution order. Sir, one of the tactical officers said, his voice barely above a whisper. If they fire, we won't survive the first volley. Relva clenched his mandibles. That was the horrifying truth. Union warships were built for endurance, not raw power. They were designed to sustain damage, wear an enemy down, negotiate. The Valkyrie, on the other hand, was built for something else entirely. It was a killer. We have to stall, he said. Open a direct channel. Tavas hesitated but complied. A heartbeat later, the transmission request was sent. For several agonizing moments, there was no response. Then, the screen flickered to life. A human appeared. The Zelnari had studied images of the lost species before, but nothing could have prepared them for this. The being before them was massive, broad-shouldered, clad in a dark military uniform, its face partially scarred, its eyes cold and calculating. This is Captain Elias Kane of the Valkyrie, the human said. His voice was deep, firm, carrying the weight of a man who had given orders that ended lives. Identify yourselves. Relva straightened, trying to steady his nerves. I am Administrator Relva of the Zelnari Outpost Xiphon 6, a station under the Galactic Union's jurisdiction. You are in restricted space. State your purpose. Kane stared at him, unblinking, unmoved. Then he leaned slightly forward, and when he spoke, it was slow, deliberate. You're wrong. Relva stiffened. Excuse me? This isn't your space, Kane said. It never was. A shiver ran through the control room. Relva forced himself to remain calm. Humanity was declared extinct centuries ago. Your presence here is an anomaly, an impossibility. If there are more of your kind, the Union must be informed. We can establish peaceful. Kane let out a short, humorless laugh. Peaceful? His expression darkened. You declared us extinct, and now you talk about peace? Relva swallowed. He wasn't sure where this was going, but he didn't like it. You don't understand what's happening, Administrator, Kane continued. This isn't first contact. This isn't diplomacy. This isn't a misunderstanding. The Valkyrie's engines rumbled ominously. This is a warning. The screens flickered. New data poured in, signals coming from beyond the system. More ships, more human ships, an entire fleet. You wanted to forget about us, Kane said, but we didn't forget about you. The transmission cut out, and then the fleet began to arrive. The void of space shimmered as the first of the human warships emerged from the abyss. One after another, they appeared like specters, massive and heavily armored, their dark hulls absorbing what little light reached them. The Valkyrie had been terrifying enough. But now dozens of warships loomed on the edges of the system, each one bristling with weaponry that made Union dreadnoughts look obsolete. Panic spread through the outpost. Officers scrambled, reports flooded in, and automated defense systems struggled to calculate odds that now seemed meaningless. Relva's hearts pounded as he watched the readings. This isn't possible, Tavas stammered. His fingers trembled over the controls. A fleet this size. The Union would have known. We would have detected them. They've been hiding, Relva murmured, realization dawning like a cold sun. They never went extinct. They've been waiting. Across the room, alarms flared again. A high-priority transmission from Union High Command was coming in. Relva barely hesitated before accepting it. The holographic image of Supreme Strategist Zaltheris flickered into view, a towering reptilian being whose presence usually inspired reassurance. But not now. Administrator, Zaltheris said, his voice tight. We've detected a massive surge of unidentified warships entering your sector. What the hell is going on? Relva swallowed hard. They're human, strategist. Silence. Zaltheris's eyes narrowed. Repeat that. They're human, sir, Relva said, his mandibles clicking with unease. They never died out. They've returned, and they came prepared. Zaltheris's expression darkened. How many? Relva looked at the scanner readout again, dreading the number. At least 60 capital-class warships so far, more incoming. And, sir, he hesitated. What? They're not running standard Union FTL drives. Their jumps are precise, almost surgical, as if they've mapped this space down to the molecule. Zaltheris exhaled sharply. That means they've been observing us. A shiver ran through the room. Then another voice cut in. An incoming broadcast, not from the Valkyrie, but from the fleet itself. A single encoded transmission forced its way onto every active Union channel. A deep, unfamiliar voice spoke. We are the Terran Dominion. You are trespassing in our space. For the first time in Galactic Union history, the tables had turned. Relva felt a pit form in his stomach. The humans weren't asking for recognition. They were claiming what was once theirs. Zaltheris's gaze turned hard. Administrator, listen carefully. You cannot let them advance beyond that sector. The Union will not tolerate... But Relva was no longer listening. Because at that very moment, the largest human warship yet arrived. A behemoth, easily the size of a Union command station. The scanners barely had time to register its sheer scale before its name appeared in bold, crimson letters across its hull. HSS Retribution, a name that carried only one meaning: vengeance, and then the countdown to war truly began. The arrival of the HSS Retribution sent a wave of terror through the Zelnari outpost. Every scanner, every automated defense system, every AI aboard the station screamed in protest at the sheer magnitude of the warship now looming before them. It wasn't just large. It was colossal. A fortress in space, built for the sole purpose of war. Relva could barely tear his eyes away from the readings. The ship's energy output rivaled that of a small star. Its weapon systems were layered in redundancies so thick that even if half of them failed, it would still outgun the entire Union fleet in the sector. "This isn't just a warship," he whispered. "It's a statement." The command room was silent, save for the rhythmic beeping of alerts flooding the system. Then, the Retribution spoke. A new transmission came through, overriding Union protocols with almost surgical precision. No encryption, no elaborate decryption needed, just a raw, unfiltered signal blasting across all frequencies. A new human face appeared on the main screen. This one was older, harder. His uniform was black with a silver emblem over his chest, a symbol unknown to the Galactic Union, but unmistakably Terran. His eyes were the color of cold steel, his face marked with lines that spoke of a lifetime of war. "I am Grand Admiral Nathaniel Graves of the Terran Dominion." His voice was deep, authoritative, carrying the weight of a man who had commanded fleets and shattered enemies. "You have one chance to surrender this sector and withdraw from Terran space." Relva felt his throat go dry. This is Union territory, has been for centuries." Graves didn't so much as blink. "That's what you thought." The words hit like a hammer. Relva's hands clenched. You eradicated us." Graves cut him off, his voice steady but filled with a simmering rage. "Or so you believed. Your historians rewrote the truth. Your leaders told the galaxy that humanity was too violent to survive, that we destroyed ourselves." He leaned in closer, and for the first time, Relva felt something he had never expected to feel from a species long declared extinct. Hatred. "But here's the reality," Graves continued. "We didn't die. We didn't fade into history. We endured. We rebuilt in the dark, beyond your borders, waiting, watching." His lips curled slightly. "And now we're back." A cold sweat formed on Relva's brow. He forced himself to stand straighter. "If you attack a Union station, it will be considered an act of war." Graves' expression didn't change. "You think this isn't already war?" A silence thicker than the void itself fell over the command center. Then Graves delivered the final blow. "We know what you did," he said. His voice was quieter now, but infinitely more dangerous. "The forced sterilizations, the purges, the orbital bombings. The Union didn't let us die out. You exterminated us." Relva flinched. The truth was supposed to be buried. Even among the highest-ranking officials in the Union, the details were classified beyond top secret. Humanity's extinction wasn't a natural event. It had been a campaign. A systematic erasure of an entire species deemed too dangerous for the balance of the galaxy. Somehow, against all odds, the humans had survived. And now, they had returned for retribution. Graves tilted his head slightly. "So tell me, Administrator, after everything your people did, why should we show you mercy?" The question hung in the air like a guillotine blade, waiting to drop. And for the first time in his career, Administrator Relva had no answer. The silence in the control room was absolute. No one moved. No one breathed. The weight of the moment was crushing, and for the first time in his life, Administrator Relva felt something alien, something utterly unnatural. Fear. It wasn't the kind of fear that came from facing an unknown threat. No, this was different. This was the fear of consequences. The Galactic Union had spent centuries covering up the truth, convincing themselves that humanity was a necessary sacrifice, that their destruction had ensured peace. But the humans hadn't been destroyed. They hadn't been forgotten. They had been waiting. And now, the Terran Dominion stood at their doorstep, demanding justice. Relva swallowed hard, forcing himself to meet Admiral Graves's gaze. If you attack this station, the Union will respond. Our fleets will come. You may win this battle, but you cannot defeat the entire Union. Graves was unmoved. Is that what you tell yourselves? That your fleets will protect you? That your treaties and alliances will save you? He leaned forward slightly. You misunderstand the situation, Administrator. This isn't a negotiation. This isn't diplomacy. You're not dealing with a minor rebellion or an upstart species trying to claim territory. His eyes were like cold iron. You're dealing with us. A new alert flashed across the Zelnari command console. Tavas let out a strangled gasp. Sir, I don't understand. The human ships, they're moving in formation, but our systems can't track their exact positioning. Relva's head snapped toward the display. It was true. The Valkyrie and the surrounding warships were executing maneuvers so precise that Union targeting algorithms were struggling to process them. Even the most advanced Union fleets relied on predictive models to anticipate movement. But the humans, they were moving outside the models. Relva's breath hitched. They know our targeting limitations. Graves gave him a knowing look. How? Relva whispered, though he already knew the answer. The humans had studied them. They had learned everything, every tactic, every formation, every weakness, and now they were exploiting it. Graves's expression remained unreadable, but there was something calculated behind his gaze. He wasn't eager for war, but he wasn't afraid of it either. The Dominion had prepared for this moment for centuries. Relva's claws dug into his desk. He had one chance to avoid a massacre. Admiral, he said carefully, you say this isn't a negotiation, but war will only lead to more destruction. Whatever happened in the past, we can... Graves cut him off. There is no we. His voice was ice. There is us and you, the ones who survived, and the ones who tried to erase us. The station trembled as the Retribution activated its primary weapons, not firing, just charging, a warning, a reminder of the power it held. Graves leaned in, his expression unreadable. You have one last chance, Administrator. Order your forces to retreat. Leave this sector. Never return. Relva knew he was out of options. His forces were hopelessly outmatched. The Union fleet was days away at best, and the humans had made their stance perfectly clear. If they refused, there would be nothing left of Xiphon 6. His voice was hoarse when he finally spoke. Stand down! A hushed murmur spread through the command center. Tavas looked at him in shock. Sir, that's an order. Relva exhaled sharply. Send the withdrawal command to all personnel. We're leaving. A flicker of something unreadable passed over Graves's face. Respect? Contempt? It was impossible to say. Wise choice, the Admiral said. The screen flickered off, and just like that, the Valkyrie and the Retribution held their fire. The Zelnari fleet disengaged. The station's systems powered down one by one. Relva sat heavily in his chair, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. The humans had won. And deep down, he knew this was only the beginning. The withdrawal was slow, methodical. The Zelnari outpost powered down non-essential systems, recalled its patrol units, and transmitted the evacuation order to all personnel. No one dared to question it. The sheer presence of the human fleet was enough to ensure that no one made any reckless decisions. From his command station, Relva watched as the Valkyrie and the Retribution remained motionless, their weapons primed but silent. They weren't celebrating. They weren't gloating. They were simply waiting. Tavas hesitated at his station. "Sir, we're abandoning a classified research facility. This sector contains decades of Union intelligence data. If the humans take it—" "They already know everything," Relva murmured, his voice hollow. "They knew about us before we even knew they existed. Whatever we thought was secret is meaningless now." Tavas swallowed. He wanted to argue, but he couldn't. The reality was clear. They weren't just facing survivors. They were facing an enemy that had spent centuries studying them, preparing for this exact moment. Relva turned back to the display, watching as his ships slowly aligned into a retreat formation. This would be the first official acknowledgement of human control over a Union sector in recorded history, a stain that would never be erased. The transmission lines remained open, as if the humans were watching, listening, waiting for something. "Send one last message," Relva ordered. Tavas nodded, fingers hovering over the interface. "What do we say?" Relva hesitated, then let out a slow breath. "We acknowledge your claim. The Union will—" He stopped himself. Saying accept was too much. Instead, he rephrased, "The Union will withdraw." A pause. Then the message was sent. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, from the Retribution, a single reply came through. "Wise." That was it. Just one word. Relva felt his claws tighten. He knew what that meant. The humans weren't thanking them. They weren't negotiating. They were warning them. This wasn't mercy. It was pity. The final ship exited the sector, leaving behind only